Interviews with the best in their fields, teaching you how to excel in careers that don't require traditional college. You're listening to the College Alternative Podcast. Insider tips and advice, straight from the experts. And now, here is your host, James Christian.
Hello and welcome to the College Alternative Podcast, a podcast that teaches you how to excel in careers that don't require traditional college. Today, we're talking with Mark Maciha. He's the director of the Park Ranger Training Program up in Northern Arizona University. Today, he's going to be talking about his program, what makes it so unique, and how to get in. So any of you guys that want to be law enforcement for the National Park Service, tune in, check it out. So hello and welcome. Appreciate all you guys showing up and listening into the College Alternative Podcast. Today we have Mark Maciha with us, and he can tell us a little bit about himself. Mark?
So, good morning. I'm Mark Maciha, the director of the Park Ranger Training Program at Northern Arizona University. Been in this position about 5 years now after a 27-year career with the National Park Service.
All right, cool. So what is the National Ranger Training Program?
So the Northern Arizona University Park Ranger Training Program is about a 15-week program that prepares folks to work in the law enforcement discipline for the Park Service. You might be surprised to know that there's about 35 different career fields in the National Park Service. Law enforcement and emergency services is just one of those.
Okay, and this is kind of interesting too, because I'm really excited to talk to you about this, because I have a buddy of mine who's a law enforcement park ranger, and he was kind of talking to me a little bit about your hiring process, National Park Service hiring process, and it's definitely a little bit different, let's say, than any other federal law enforcement out there, probably, as well as any local or state law enforcement as well, correct?
Yeah, that's true. The application process, all the vacancy announcements are posted on the usajobs.gov webpage. And the Park Service is different, certainly, in that folks that want to work in law enforcement really need to put themselves through an academy like ours first to get the training prerequisites in order to qualify for the jobs. Most other agencies would hire you off the street, perhaps put you through an academy and go through that process.
Yeah, and also you need to possibly do a seasonal work too, or is it full-time? Do you normally get hired directly full-time in law enforcement?
Yeah, let me touch on the seasonal, permanent, full-time, part-time kind of concept. This training program prepares folks to work as seasonal park rangers, which means you're limited to about 6 months per park per year. That's in a full-time capacity, so 40 plus hours per week, but you're limited in the amount of time that you can spend in one place. Certainly you could go park to park, work full-time year-round, say work a summer park, Glacier, Rocky Mountain, Grand Canyon, and then work the southern deserts in the wintertime. So the opportunity is there for full-time employment. Permanent career status, same general application process, but in our discipline is typically attained through working as a seasonal park ranger first, getting some experience, some networking, and then being able to better qualify for permanent positions, which is full-time, permanent career status. There's no condition on the amount of time that you can work in one park.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of cool because, yeah, you are doing seasonal work, but you also are checking out the different parks, because I'm assuming that every single park has somewhat of a different atmosphere, somewhat of a different culture to it, and you get to sort of choose and sort of see which park you kind of like before you really apply yourself for a permanent full-time position, right?
Certainly, there's 412 different units in the National Park System, so yeah, the benefit to working as a seasonal is you get to explore all those places, and if an area of the country or a particular park really appeals to you, then you can make a better informed decision on permanent employment later on.
Okay, cool. So your training program at NAU. So what's kind of the description here? You said 15 weeks, and what are the courses that you cover typically?
So we present the curriculum of the National Park Service through an agreement with them. We cover what you might find in a typical police academy, legal, foundations, behavioral science, enforcement operations, patrol skills, firearms, emergency vehicle operations, and then what is called physical techniques. So the hand-to-hand combat, the fitness, handcuffing, those type of topics. Right now we're at about 700 hours plus. Some of that we're delivering in an online format, but most of it happens here at Northern Arizona University. It's hard to test firearms qualifications online, so a lot of that has to be done here.
It's not online course.
No, not so much.
Okay, and so there is going to be homework. There is going to be PT involved. You're going to do ground defense tactics, etc. Typically, you're going to have weekends off, or are you going to be able to? Are you required to stay on campus?
There's no requirement to stay on campus, but most of our students come here only for this program. We certainly serve our full-time students here, but that tends to be less than a third of the class. And while they're here, they pay for their own housing and meals and all that. So we condense the time that they have to be here through the online delivery and then through a lot of weekend work.
Okay. So you're condensing all of it down so they can get out in the field a little bit faster, which is kind of nice.
Absolutely. That's our job.
Awesome. And so what is this going to run a person? Because you said that they're going to be paying for this themselves. The National Park Service does not pay for this class, correct?
That's correct.
People have to invest their own time and money into it if they really want to do it, right?
That's true. So we have options for our full-time students. You can enroll in the program for college credit, and that would be either in-state or out-of-state credit. Tuition plus $1,800 in course fees, and that's for expendable items like firearms, ammunition, and that sort of thing. If you choose the non-credit option, which some folks that already have college degrees, that appeals to them, tends to be a little less expensive. That's $6,500. Regarding housing, we have arrangements with members of our community that will rent rooms in their homes exclusively to our students. We've got a couple of arrangements with apartment complexes, and they understand that we're here to do good things for a short period and not require some of the typical deposits and things you might have as a full-time student here.
Okay. Let's see here. What else? What kind of skill sets are you talking about here? You're talking about ground defense, firearms, driving as well. So really these guys are walking away fully certified to become law enforcement officers with the Park Service, correct?
Certainly they've got the full skill set. The actual certification per se comes after they get their employment offer, but yeah, they've got the full skill set that you would find in any other law enforcement agency in the country.
Okay. And can guys take additional, let's say you're enrolled in NAU, can you guys take, or can your students take additional college courses on top of this program, or are they just taking this separately for a semester?
Some of our students have certainly taken additional classes such as EMT and other courses that we offer. However, this is a fairly intense program, and we run our classes 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, as we talked several weekends, and there's not a lot of extra time left for anything else. So usually our students will focus on this while they're here and then pursue other courses once they leave.
Yeah, probably the ground defense is going to kick their butts a little bit to the point where get home, study, go to sleep.
And both the mental and physical challenges can certainly take it out of you.
And so how is your program different from anybody else's? Why would one person want to go to NAU's versus one of the other, 5 other programs that are out there?
6 other programs.
Okay.
We all teach the same core requirements of the National Park Service. Certainly an advantage to Northern Arizona University is that we're surrounded in national park lands.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 5 units of the system within about an hour's drive, and we're able to utilize instructors from those different parks. And frankly, they come here to hone their instructional skills, but almost more importantly, to scope out the students and find those that would be a good match for their parks. And so we can facilitate the employment connections perhaps better than some of the other programs. We also bring a significant amount of Park Service experience. There's only one other program that has a career Park Service ranger involved with it. So we bring that to the table in conjunction with all of the active duty rangers that actively support our program.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I know that you guys are fairly close to the Grand Canyon, right?
Yes, about an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, and talking with my buddy, oh my goodness, they definitely get a lot of experience out there.
That's what we call a high volume experience.
A lot of search and rescue, a lot of patrolling. Yeah, a ton of tourists coming out there. That's really, really neat. I'm glad you guys utilize a lot of active duty experience. That's pretty neat. So this prepares you for the law enforcement side of the house for Park Service. So this isn't really for the guys that you see who are doing educational programs for the park, correct? Or the guys that you sort of see wandering around on the trails, maintaining, talking to tourists, etc., right? This is just for the law enforcement side of the house.
Well, I wouldn't say just, but yes, we're
Okay.
focused on the law enforcement function. Certainly, some of our students will get through the program and understand that, hey, maybe this isn't the best discipline for me, but they can go forward as park managers, having a better understanding of the law enforcement and emergency services function. And frankly, I'd rather work for someone like that perhaps worked in a different discipline, but has this background to understand more about what we do in the law enforcement function.
Yeah, and so you were talking before about guys coming in, helping teach a little bit, and then kind of getting the scope on some of your students to make those connections, those employment connections. So this isn't really a direct flow into a job per se, right? So you're still going to have to apply online, but you have connections, correct?
Certainly, yeah. We don't have the authority to create that direct flow. With my 27 years in the agency and some others, we still have some very active connections. And if someone were to say, hey, I want to work at Grand Tetons, it's like, hey, let me call the chief ranger up there and help you out, or let me help you with your application and focus on what they do at Teton. So we certainly facilitate it, but we don't have any direct hiring authority.
Yeah, but I mean, that's still pretty big, especially for the federal government being as massive as it is. How many law enforcement personnel are for the park right now?
I believe out of the 24,000 employees, there's only 3,000 that have law enforcement commissions. And of that, about half are seasonal employees.
Yeah, so your reputation starts right when they get to your academy or your program, correct? So they're developing their own reputation. So guys are scoping them out, seeing who they want, and it's kind of nice that you can give somebody a call and say, hey, this guy's good to go, and they can start looking at that guy's name a little bit more closely. And that's huge. I mean, federal government is a little bit more autonomous with their hiring, I would say, and so any type of advantage you can get for getting the park that you want, that's awesome that you guys can help with that a little bit. So talking more about this class, let's say I do want to get into your program. How many times a year do you guys offer this? Once a semester or once a year?
So we offer the program twice a year, and that's the fall and the spring semesters, and most of the other programs also offer the program about once or twice a year.
Okay, and how far out do I need to apply for this? What's the cutoff date?
Well, we have an open enrollment period, and so it's helpful to get an application to us at least 2 months before the program starts so that we can get all the paperwork lined up and get them into our system.
Okay, and how many students typically apply, and how many do you typically take?
Well, it's an interesting question. Leading up to the last couple of years, we would have up to 50 applicants for 26 positions in each class. That dropped off a little bit over the last year and a half, but now we're at capacity plus for this semester.
Okay, so that's not too bad, actually. So you're not talking about thousands and thousands of applicants that you're competing against.
No, I think there's a perception out there has been that there were challenges with the federal budget. Maybe there weren't jobs out there. And as we discussed, it's a big investment to come out here. And so people would rather stick with their jobs and dream about being a ranger rather than gambling that money to maybe apply for a position. But certainly things have changed the last 2 years. There have not been enough applicants for law enforcement jobs, and my phone's ringing off the hook with folks, rangers that I know, saying, "Hey, send me your people." And so
Yeah.
it's shifted, but I think that perception is still one that we're out trying to correct.
Yeah, and I mean, we can touch on that a little bit as far as law enforcement and within the United States and the America right now. I mean, I would say that the Park Service has kind of definitely avoided a lot of the issues that we're having right now. You're in a beautiful park. You're in a beautiful setting. You're getting law enforcement job, but you're not going to be with the general public. You're going to be with tourists that want to come out and enjoy, for the most part, our national parks. And so you're getting somewhat of a different clientele as law enforcement, correct?
Certainly, the job is still the same. What they do in Los Angeles is the same thing that we do at Grand Canyon. Different volume, like you say, a different environment, but the professionalism is equivalent.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just saying, yeah, it's definitely the same job, but what was it? They're able to avoid certain aspects that I believe certain other law enforcement might be encountering right now out in the field. Yeah,
Certainly, yes.
so that's not a bad thing, in all honesty. So not too big a class size, but you're not getting a ton of applicants, which means that great news for guys that are trying to get into your program. You stand a very good chance of getting in. Do you need to be already enrolled as a student with the NAU before applying for your program, or can anybody from the outside apply?
Anybody from the outside can apply to our program, and I think that's an advantage that we have with the two options for college credit and non-credit. So going the non-credit route, students can apply directly with the program. We've got our webpage, and they can just grab the application online and send that in to us.
Okay. And then what are you looking for in applicants? Do they need to bring are you looking for special skill sets prior to enrolling in your program? Let's say somebody needs to get an EMT. Are you looking for EMT certs or fire certs before they get in? Or what would make for a good applicant?
What would make for a good applicant? In more competitive times, when we had more applicants than we had positions, certainly previous training and experience in fire and EMS and search and rescue were elements that we evaluated. Certainly those are great things to bring into the program. If you don't have those, that's fine, but we highly recommend those types of skills be attained once they leave.
Okay.
And it's all about being competitive for the jobs and being prepared for the jobs. It's not so much what I personally want in a student. It's what the National Park Service needs to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, again, talking with my buddy, have on here in a couple days, he was saying that you guys are surprisingly certified in a lot of different areas, not just in law enforcement. You're called upon to do search and rescue, fire, both wilderness and structural fires in some of the parks. What else would your students be called on to do when they get hired full time?
Wow, it sure depends on the location and the call volume of certain things. If you look at some of the larger parks, we operate small cities. And so in a city such as Los Angeles, you've got the police department, the fire department, the public works, the mayor's office, and in a national park, all that's combined with the National Park Service. And so, yeah, I've found myself working structural fire, wildland fire, emergency medical services, law enforcement, search and rescue, flight operations, wilderness management. Boy, the list just goes on and on. So the challenge, I think, is to be good at a lot of those skills and have a working knowledge of most everything.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool because A, it equals more training, and as law enforcement, you can't get enough, and you get to wear many hats. So it's not just sitting alongside the highway shooting traffic for speeders. You're doing a lot of different things, a lot of different variety, and you're keeping it unique throughout your entire career, right?
Absolutely. And for me, it was if I got challenged or kind of tired of one discipline, I could go focus on another one for a while and I guess renew my spirit and enthusiasm. And it wasn't, like you say, running traffic for 27 years. It was, say, at Death Valley for me, it was a lot of EMS because we provided the contract ambulance service for the county in that area. So we got really good at that. Not so much law enforcement. A place like Lake Mead, the call volume was different than a higher volume of law enforcement and EMS. So yeah, you get a great opportunity to pick and choose and to work throughout the country, every place from Maine to Hawaii to the Virgin Islands to Guam to both borders. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I think, and plus they're all beautiful. All the parks are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Get to work with a lot of great individuals, and you get to meet a lot of different people. I think Park Service really is maybe not necessarily a hidden gem, but one that if people are considering law enforcement, they should be looking at the Park Service as a viable option. Not just, LA or New York or some of the bigger police departments out there. They should be looking at the federal government, and I think they should be looking at your Park Service too for law enforcement. I think it's unique, and you get to wear a lot of different hats. So that's awesome. Anything else you'd like to say to anybody out there?
Certainly feel free to give us a call. I'd love to talk to you about the career. I'd love to talk to you about the program itself. And like you just mentioned, I'd certainly encourage anyone that's considering any discipline, even outside of law enforcement. We have maintenance employees that manage sewage treatment plants and plumbers and electricians and carpenters and those that give the walks and talks and administrators and budget people. And if you have an interest, the Park Service has a need for that interest. So I would encourage everyone to think about the Park Service as a career.
Okay. Well, cool. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate you sitting down, taking the time. I know you're very busy running your program. But thanks again. I really do appreciate it. And if anybody wants to contact you, how do they do so?
Our office phone number 928-523-8242. Or you can certainly go to the Northern Arizona University webpage, nau.edu, and type in Park Ranger Training Program, and that'll take you right to our page.
All right. Well, cool. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate you sitting down.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Take care.
So if you liked what you heard today, please like and subscribe below, and also check us out at collegealternative.net. So stay tuned for next week. Thanks, guys.